We will begin with the chapter Introducing Western Sociologists. Have you ever wondered why sociology is sometimes called the child of the age of revolution? Well, sociology came into being in the 19th century in Western Europe, and this was after the preceding 3 centuries of change. The 3 centuries of change roughly amounts to the three revolutions so as to speak of were responsible for its emergence. That is, number one, the scientific revolution or the Enlightenment, number two, the French Revolution, and number three, the Industrial Revolution. Not only did Europe get transformed, but this also affected the other countries that came in close contact with Europe. Let's go over the revolutions one by one. We begin with the Enlightenment, which was a late 17th to 18th century phenomena, which basically was a radically new approach to understand the world. The earlier approach had been defined by nature, religion, and the divine acts of God. Enlightenment, or the scientific revolution, established the human being at the center of the universe and rational thought as the central feature of the human being. So reason became the defining logic, with attitudes of mind that were secular, scientific, and humanistic. The ability to think rationally and critically transformed the individual human being into both the producer and the user of all knowledge. So this period heralded a movement away from religion and a tilt towards logical and rational thinking. Now let's look at the second one, that is the French Revolution, which occurred in 1789 and was the first step towards political sovereignty for individuals and also the concept of a nation state. The Declaration of Human Rights demanded equality for all citizens and questioned the legitimacy of privileges inherited by birth by the clergy and the nobility. As a free citizen of the Republic, sovereign individuals were invested with rights and were equal before the law and other institutions of the state. A separation was built between the public realm of the state and the private realm of the household. New ideas about what was appropriate to the public and private spheres developed. Religion and family became more private, while education or schooling became public. The nation state was redefined as a sovereign entity with the centralized government and the ideals of liberty, equality, and fraternity becoming central to the modern state. Now let's proceed to look at the third revolution, that is the Industrial Revolution. Now this began in Britain in the late 18th and early 19th century. It was basically laying out the foundation of the modern industry. There were two aspects to it. Number one, the systematic application of science and technology to industrial production. This was brought about with the invention of new machines like spinning jenny in the textile industry, which sped up the pace of work, along with harnessing of new sources of power, that is, from animate power, that is animal and human energy, to inanimate power like steam. And the second aspect is that the Industrial Revolution also evolved new ways of organizing labor and markets on a scale larger than anything in the past. Since goods were now produced on a gigantic scale for faraway markets across the world, changes began to affect the social life. So the question arises is that what kind of changes did the social life of the people experience because of the Industrial Revolution? Well, for one, the factories were in urban areas, and because of the lack of opportunities in rural areas, People began to migrate to urban areas in large numbers. Modern industry made urban settings dominate the rural setup. So, cities and towns began to become the dominant forms of settlement, with large numbers of people being housed in small, densely populated areas. The factory workers were paid low wages and had to work long hours under hazardous circumstances. Men, women, and even children worked in these factories in order to be able to earn a living. Modern forms of governance, with the state assuming control of health, sanitation, crime control, and general development, created the demand for new kinds of knowledge. So, we have the emergence of sociology as a response to this need. Sociological thought was concerned with the scientific analysis of development in the industrial society. The scientific information generated by the state to monitor and maintain the health of its social body became the basis for reflection on society. Sociological theory was the result of this self reflection. Now we shall discuss the key ideas of the three classical sociologists after having studied the background of sociology. Now, these key sociologists laid the foundation of the subject. Who were the sociologists? Well, we'll study three of them, that is, Karl Marx, Emil Durkheim, and Max Weber. We begin with Karl Marx. Karl Marx was from Germany. His radical political views led him to be exiled from Germany. So he's living in England. Marx had a doctorate in philosophy. He was also a social thinker who advocated an end to oppression and exploitation. He did a critical analysis of the capitalist society. He believed that scientific socialism will ultimately replace capitalism. So, according to Marx, the human society had progressed through various stages, starting from the primitive communism to slavery, feudalism, and capitalism, with the final stage being socialism. Now, note, we're still in the stage of capitalism, so here it's just important to know the stages through which the society passed. Now, let's look at Marx's concept of alienation. Alienation was a feature of the capitalist society. So, alienation basically means that there is an estrangement or separation. And according to Marx, the capitalist society was characterized by this feeling. So, in essence, capitalism ended up dehumanizing humans. How, you might ask? Well, the humans felt separated from aspects of their human nature because of division of labor, and secondly, because of the stratified society which was based on social classes. Now, according to Marx, alienation operated at several levels. First, humans in a modern capitalist society are more alienated from nature than ever before. Second, humans are alienated from each other due to capitalism's stress on individualism, and also the relationships are more market mediated. The third kind of alienation is when the workers feel that they are alienated from their fruits of labor, that is, the things that they produce. Why? Because they don't own the product they produce and they don't have control of the work process itself. The management decides and maps out the factory workers' working day, unlike in the past where we have the skilled craftsmen controlling their own labor. Finally, due to the above mentioned estrangements, the humans are also alienated from themselves, and struggle to make their lives meaningful in a system where, ironically, they are both more free but also more alienated and less in control of their lives than ever before. So, this was Marx's concept of alienation, and he believes that capitalism would pave the way towards an egalitarian future that was free from both exploitation and poverty. This transformation would be initiated by the working class, who would unite to collectively bring about a revolution to overthrow capitalism and establish a free and equal socialist society. Note that this is the fifth and, according to Marx, the final stage of the growth of society, that is, capitalism would give way to socialism. So the question arises is that how does capitalism operate? Well, Marx undertook an in-depth study of its political, social, and economic aspects. Marx studied society from their economic aspects, that is, mode of production. His categorization of societies was based on the broad system of production associated with a particular historical period, and this defined an entire way of life characteristic of that era. So, primitive communism, slavery, feudalism, and capitalism were all modes of production. Now, in order to understand this better, imagine the mode of production to be a building, which consists of a foundation or a base and something erected on top of the base, that is, the superstructure. The base is the economic base and includes both productive forces and productive relations. Productive forces are the factors of production, that is, land, labor, technology, energy sources, etc. And the productive relations are the economic relationships and forms of labor organizations that are involved in the production. Note that the productive relations are the relationships based on ownership or control of the means of production. On this base rested all social, cultural, and political institutions of the society or the superstructure. So, institutions like religion, law, literature, art, or beliefs and ideas were all a part of the superstructure. Marx argued that people's ideas and beliefs originated from the economic system, that is, their material life shaped their ideas. How humans earned their livelihood determined their thought process. Marx placed great emphasis on economic structures and processes because he believed that they formed the foundations of every social system throughout human history. Understanding how economy works and how it has been changing, we can learn how to change society for a better future. Now, this change can be brought about through a class struggle. Let's look at the concept of class struggle as per Marx. Well, Marx classified people into social groups with reference to the production process. By virtue of the people's location in the production process and in property relations, they formed a social class as they share the same interests and objectives. Classes are formed through historical process. These are in turn shaped by transformations in the conditions and forces of production and consequent conflicts between the already existing classes. As the mode of production changes due to change in production technology and the social relations of production, conflicts begin to develop between the different classes, which results in struggles. The history of all hitherto existing societies is the history of class struggle. This is the famous opening lines of the Communist Manifesto that was written by Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. Note, through the course of human history, the nature of the class struggle varied in different historical epochs. As society evolved from the primitive to the modern through distinct phases, each epoch was characterized by particular kinds of conflict between the oppressor and the oppressed classes. So, the major opposing classes of each stage were identified from the contradictions of the production process. Now, note when two classes are objectively opposed to each other, they do not automatically engage in conflict unless and until they become subjectively conscious of their class interests and identities, and also of their rivals' interests and identities. It is important for this class consciousness to develop through political mobilization for class conflict to occur. This conflict leads to an overthrow of the ruling or dominant class by the subordinate class and heralds a revolution. So, in Marx's theory, economic processes create contradictions which in turn generate class conflict. Note, economic processes did not lead to revolution. The social and political processes were also needed to bring about a total transformation of the society. Also, note that in every epoch, the ruling class promotes a dominant ideology which justifies their domination and their existing social order. The oppressed sections of the society are encouraged to think that they are poor not because of exploitation by the rich, but because of fate or their bad karma and so on. However, the dominant ideologies are challenged by alternative worldviews. So, as consciousness spreads unevenly among classes, how a class will act in a particular historical situation cannot be determined. Hence, according to Marx, economic processes generally tend to generate class conflicts, though this also depends on political and social conditions. Under favorable conditions, class conflicts culminate in revolutions. So, with this, we've completed Karl Marx, and let's move over to Émile Durkheim. Émile Durkheim was a Frenchman, and he's considered as the founder of the sociology as a formal discipline. Coming from a religious family, his moral upbringing had an enduring influence on his sociological thinking. For him, the moral codes were the key characteristics of a society that determined the behavior patterns of individuals. These he called social facts. So let's look at social facts as per Durkheim. Society for Durkheim was a social fact, and the discipline of sociology should be understood as the empirical study of social facts. So, what are social facts? Well, social facts are things that are external to the actor and also coercive of the actor. And these are created from collective forces and do not emanate from the individual. Social facts may not seem to be observable, but they exist as a moral community over and above the individual, and these persist across generations. So, the major characteristics of social facts is that they are external to an individual, that is, they exist outside the individual and are not a product of an individual's will or consciousness, but are established in the social realm. Secondly, they constrain an individual or exert pressure and influence over these individuals. People must adapt or conform to them or face sanctions or punishment. Also, social facts are general in nature as they do not apply to specific individuals but rather apply broadly across the society. Social facts are independent of an individual's life as they persist across generations, retaining their influence and existence. So basically, now we have an idea of what are social facts. Durkheim's functionalist perspective viewed social facts as serving particular functions within the society. The social facts, such as norms and values, contribute to social solidarity by promoting collective consciousness. Note these ties that bound people in groups were crucial to the existence of the society, and these exert pressure on the individual to conform to the norms and expectations of the group. This constrained the individual's behavior pattern, limiting variations within a small range. So, behavior can be predicted as it follows a pattern, and there was a constriction of choice in social action. So, by observing behavior patterns, it was possible to identify the norms, codes, and social solidarities which govern them. The existence of ideas, norms, values could be thus empirically verified by studying the pattern of social behavior of people as they related to each other in a society. The question now is that how did Durkheim seek to establish sociology as a rigorous scientific discipline? Well, the scientific understanding he sought to develop was based on the recognition of moral facts. Moral facts are phenomena which have rules of action that are recognizable because of their distinctive characteristics. This feature makes them easy to be observed, described, and classified. Also, it is possible to look for certain laws that will explain them. Since moral codes were manifestations of particular social conditions, the morality appropriate for one society would be inappropriate for the other. So, for Durkheim, the prevailing social conditions could be deduced from the moral codes, and this made sociology be like the natural sciences. Now, let's look at Durkheim's vision of sociology. His vision was of sociology as a new scientific discipline, and it was characterized by two defining features. First was the subject matter of sociology, that is, social facts. And social facts were different from the other sciences in the sense that sociology exclusively concerned itself with what you call the emergent level. Now, the question is, what is emergent level? Well, it is the level of complex collective life where social phenomena can emerge. These phenomena were only possible in a complex whole that was larger than a different form from its constituent parts. For example, a collective social entity like a cricket team becomes something other than and much more than just a collection of 11 persons. That is, this collectivity belongs to a different level of reality than the level of individuals. And it is this level of complex collective life where social phenomena can emerge and is therefore called the emergent level. The second defining feature is that sociology is an empirical discipline. Like most of the natural sciences, although social phenomena by their very nature are abstract. And this was one of the most significant achievements of Durkheim in his demonstrating that sociology that dealt with social facts could be a science founded on observable, empirically verifiable evidence. Social facts, though not directly observable, could be observed through patterns of behavior. The most famous example of his use of a new kind of empirical data is his study of suicide. People commit suicide due to individual circumstances. Yet, the average rate of suicide aggregated across hundreds of thousands of individuals in a community was a social fact. Thus, social facts could be observed via social behavior and specially aggregated patterns of social behavior. Let's move on to his concept of division of labor in society. Now, Durkheim, in his first book, Division of Labor in Society, discussed the evolution of society from the primitive to the modern. He classified a society on the nature of its social solidarity, and on this basis, there was mechanical solidarity and organic solidarity. Now, mechanical solidarity exists in societies with small populations and is founded on similarity of its individual members. So, this society has a collection of different self sufficient groups where each person within a particular group is engaged in similar activities or functions. So, the society is marked by close personal relationships and is not very tolerant of differences. Any violation of the norms of the community attracts harsh punishment. The society has repressive laws designed to prevent deviation from community norms. The individuals and the community are so tightly integrated as it was feared that any violation of codes of conduct could result in the disintegration of the community. So, primitive societies are characterized by this kind of mechanical solidarity. Now, let's look at organic solidarity. Here, there's a heterogeneity of its members. This type of solidarity characterizes modern societies with a large population where most social relationships are impersonal in nature. Such a society is based on institutions, and each of its constituent groups are not self sufficient but dependent on other groups for their survival. The society allows individual needs to be different from each other and recognizes their multiple roles and organic ties. Here, the laws are restitutive. Thus, we see the difference between these two types of solidarities, that is, mechanical solidarity and organic solidarity. The characteristic feature of modern societies is that individuals with similar goals will voluntarily come together to form groups and associations. Individuals have many different identities in different contexts. This enables individuals to emerge from the shadow of the community and establish their distinct identity in terms of the functions they perform and the roles they play. Since all individuals have to depend on others for the fulfillment of their basic needs, their intensity of interaction with others increases. Impersonal rules are required to govern social relations in such societies because personalized relations can no longer be maintained in large populations. Thus, we see Durkheim empirically validating sociology by the use of different types of solidarity as social facts. So we've completed Durkheim, and let's look at the last sociologist, Max Weber. Max Weber was a German social thinker. He focused on developing an interpretive sociology of social action and of power and domination. His stance was that the objective of the social sciences was to develop an interpretive understanding of social action. The central concern of the social sciences was with social action. Human actions involved subjective meanings. So, for Weber, social action included all human behavior that was meaningful. The task of a sociologist was to recover the meanings attributed by the social actor. To do this, the sociologist had to have an empathetic understanding in order for him to access the subjective meanings and motivations of the social actors. So, this could be achieved by the sociologist by placing himself in the other person's shoes, so as to speak. Now, empathetic understanding requires this special and complex kind of objectivity that had to be cultivated. The sociologist had to show value neutrality, that is, describe and not judge, and also not allow his or her personal beliefs and opinions or prejudices to influence this process in any way. Weber also suggested another methodological tool for doing sociology, that is, the ideal type. The ideal type is a conceptual tool designed to help analysis. It is a logically consistent model of a social phenomenon that highlights its most significant characteristics. Thus, it is not an exact reproduction of reality, but it may exaggerate some features of the phenomenon that are considered to be analytically important and downplay others. The ideal type was used by Weber to analyze the relationships between the ethics of world religions and the rationalization of the social world in different civilizations. It was in this context that Weber suggested that ethics of certain Protestant sects within Christianity had a deep influence on the development of capitalism in Europe. Weber also used the ideal type to illustrate the three types of authority, that is, traditional authority, which had its source in custom and precedents. Next, we have charismatic authority, which is derived from some divine source or is a gift of grace. And last, the rational legal authority that was based on legal demarcation of authority. Now, let's look at bureaucracy. Bureaucracy is characterized by rational legal authority. It was a mode of organization that regulates the behavior in the public domain with explicit rules and regulations. As a public institution, bureaucracy restricted the powers of the officials in regard to their responsibilities and did not provide absolute power to them. Bureaucratic authority is characterized by the following factors. Number one, the functioning of the officials. So there's a fixed area of official jurisdiction that are governed by laws, rules, and administrative regulations. These are official duties as part of the regular activities of the bureaucratic organization. Official positions in a bureaucracy are filled up by people having the requisite qualifications. They are independent of the incumbent as they continue beyond the tenure of any occupant. Number two is the hierarchical ordering of positions. Authority and office are placed on a graded hierarchy where the high officials supervise the lower ones. This allows scope of appeal to a higher official in case of dissatisfaction with the decisions of the lower officials. Next is the reliance on written document. So here we have the management of the organization on the basis of written documents or files, which are preserved as records. There is a accumulation, you could say, in decision making of this bureau or office. Then we move over to the office management, that is, the organization is characterized with a specialized and modern activity and therefore requires trained and skilled personnel to conduct the day to day operations. Fifth, the conduct an office. In a bureaucracy, official activity demands full time attention of the officials, irrespective of his or her delimited hours in office. An official's conduct in office is governed by exhaustive rules and regulations which have legal recognitions and hence officials can be held accountable. Weber characterized bureaucracy as a modern form of political authority. The legal delimitation of tasks and authority constrained unbridled power and made officials accountable to their clients as their work was carried out in the public domain. Now, with this, we have concluded the chapter, and this provided us an overview of the three sociologists who had an all pervading influence on sociology.